AITA for refusing to let my sister live with me after she lost her job and home. So, here's the situation. My 32F sister, Emily, 29F, recently went through a pretty rough patch. She lost her job due to company downsizing, and shortly after, her apartment lease ended. She called me in a panic, asking if she could move in temporarily while she got back on her feet. I live alone in a 2-bedroom apartment in a city that is already expensive as hell, so I was immediately concerned about the practicalities. I work full-time and have a very structured routine, and I was worried that adding another adult to the mix, especially one who had no job lined up, would disrupt things. But I also felt guilty saying no, given her circumstances. I asked her how long she thought she'd need to stay. Emily said, maybe a month or 2 tops. I hesitated, but tentatively said it could work, thinking I could manage a short-term arrangement. I made it clear that she would need to actively look for a job and contribute to groceries or bills in any way she could. She agreed. So far, everything seemed manageable. The first week went okay. She helped with cleaning a little, though I noticed she spent a lot of time on her phone and watching TV. She said she was recharging and figuring out the job hunt. I try to be patient, though I admit it was starting to get on my nerves. She didn't really make any effort to help financially either, which I thought was reasonable at first since she had no income. After 2 weeks, it became clear that she wasn't actively applying to jobs. When I asked about applications, she told me she was waiting for the right opportunity and that the market was saturated. I reminded her gently that temporary housing means actively working toward independence, not just staying put indefinitely. She got defensive and accused me of being unsupportive and treating her like a child. I tried to explain that I wasn't trying to micromanage her life, but she needed to contribute in some way, either financially or with effort toward employment. Then things escalated. She started leaving her stuff all over my apartment, never cleaned up after herself, and ate my groceries without asking. She claimed she would replace things later, but never did. I started feeling stressed every day, and it was affecting my work because I couldn't relax at home anymore. One night, she invited 2 of her friends over without telling me. They stayed for hours, played loud music, and I had to ask them to leave because I had an early meeting. Emily argued that she was lonely and just trying to be social, which I understood, but I had boundaries and they were being ignored. By the end of the month, I decided enough was enough. I told her that she needed to have a firm plan by the end of the week. Either find a job and contribute to bills or find another place to stay. She exploded, saying I was heartless and that she couldn't believe I would throw her out when she had nowhere else to go. I tried to stay calm and offered to help her find resources, like local shelters or job programs, but she refused, saying I was making her feel like a burden. The next few days were tense. She barely spoke to me, and I noticed she had started taking my things without asking, like toiletries and clothes. I finally decided to stop letting her stay. I told her that she needed to leave by the end of the week. She reacted very badly, crying, shouting, and accusing me of being selfish. She even posted on social media about how heartless her sister is without naming me directly, which made some of her mutual friends reach out to me asking what was going on. Here's the part that's causing a lot of conflict. My parents are furious with me. They say I should have been more understanding, that Emily had nowhere else to go, and that I'm treating family like strangers. They argue that I could have made more compromises, like letting her stay longer or giving her money. I tried to explain that letting her stay indefinitely would not solve her problems and would create a toxic environment for both of us. I also pointed out that I offered other forms of help, like helping her find shelters, resources, or job leads, but that she refused. Some of my friends say I was right to set boundaries. They argue that helping someone doesn't mean sacrificing your own well-being or tolerating disrespectful behavior. Others say I could have been more patient and creative, like helping her find a roommate situation or offering a partial rent arrangement. I honestly feel torn. I don't like seeing my sister in a bad situation, but living with her has been emotionally draining, and she wasn't making any effort to improve her circumstances. I also feel guilty because our parents have been criticizing me nonstop, and I worry I'm being unfairly harsh. To clarify, I offered temporary housing initially, made expectations very clear, and tried to help her find alternatives. She refused to actively pursue independence and started taking liberties in my home. I finally said she needed to leave, which has caused a family rift. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to let my sister continue living with me after she lost her job and home. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after a family dispute escalated. I, 28F, have always been close to my sister, Clara, 32F, up until recently. Growing up, we had a typical sibling relationship, some rivalry, plenty of support, and a lot of shared memories. Our parents divorced when we were teens, and Clara took on a lot of responsibility for me. She was protective, sometimes overbearing, but I loved her for it. Over the past year, however, things have started to change in ways that have left me questioning my relationship with her and our family as a whole. Clara got engaged last summer to her boyfriend, Marcus, 33M. I didn't meet him until a few months before they got engaged, and while I thought he was nice enough, there was an odd vibe I couldn't quite place. He was charming in public, but occasionally dismissive in private conversations with me, often making subtle comments about how my career choices aren't serious or how I don't handle responsibilities like an adult. I try to shrug it off, thinking maybe he was just joking, but I began noticing Clara laughing along in a way that felt uncomfortable. About 6 months ago, the tension really started when Clara asked me to help her plan the wedding. I have a full-time job and freelance projects on the side, so my schedule is packed. I told her I could help in small ways, maybe proofreading invitations or giving opinions on certain decisions. But I couldn't dedicate multiple weekends to dress fittings, floral arrangements, or DIY decorations. She didn't take it well. She accused me of being selfish and unsupportive, claiming that a sister should be fully involved in every aspect of the wedding. I tried to explain my time constraints, but she became visibly upset and distant. That was the first major disagreement that lingered for weeks. Fast forward to a month ago, the drama escalated. Clara was upset that I hadn't accompanied her to a bridal show she really wanted to attend. I had work obligations and told her honestly that I couldn't go. She then sent me a message saying that she expected her own sister to prioritize family over work and implied that my absence would make me look like I don't care about her happiness. I responded politely, reiterating that I support her, but cannot always be available on her schedule. She replied with a long message outlining everything I supposedly had done wrong. Not visiting often enough, not being involved in family events, and failing to act like a sister. I was shocked because none of these claims were discussed beforehand. They were just accusations. Then came the biggest blow. A few weeks ago, Clara asked me to help with the seating chart. I mentioned I had an idea for how to arrange guests based on personality compatibility, but I also said I couldn't guarantee being present at every planning session. Her response was explosive. She said that if I didn't commit fully, I was not welcome to attend the wedding at all. She added that she didn't want someone who only shows up when convenient, and that I needed to either prioritize her day or step away. I was stunned. We ended up having a long argument over text where Clara accused me of being manipulative, uncaring, and the least reliable family member she had ever known. I tried to reason with her, saying that I want to celebrate her day and be supportive in ways that I can realistically manage, but she refused to accept anything less than total involvement. After that conversation, I realized that attending her wedding under these conditions would make me feel like I was walking on eggshells, constantly trying to meet expectations that were never reasonable or previously discussed. I also started reflecting on past patterns. Whenever I voiced boundaries or had different priorities, Clara's response was either passive-aggressive, guilt-tripping, or outright anger. I began feeling resentful, anxious, and guilty all at once, which made the idea of celebrating with her extremely stressful, rather than joyful. So, I made the decision to step back. I wrote her a heartfelt message explaining that I love her, that I want her happiness, and that I cannot attend the wedding under circumstances that compromise my emotional well-being. I offer to celebrate with her in other ways, like taking her out for lunch, giving a gift, and helping in small, reasonable ways that don't interfere with my life. But I stated clearly that I would not be at the wedding itself. I also mentioned that I hope we can rebuild our relationship in the future. I didn't attack her character. I tried to frame it as a personal boundary. The response I got from Clara and Marcus was worse than I imagined. Clara accused me of being cruel, selfish, and emotionally manipulative. She said my refusal ruined everything and claimed that my absence would be remembered as a betrayal. Marcus chimed in, saying that it was shameful to prioritize work over family and that I should reconsider because no one else in the family would behave this way. My parents called me asking why I would make such a choice, expressing that family should come first. Even my extended family has started subtly shaming me on social media for not supporting my sister. I'm standing firm on my decision, but the backlash has been intense. I've had friends try to mediate, but they seem divided. Some say I'm right to protect my boundaries and that no wedding should come at the cost of mental health. Others argue that a sister should never miss such a pivotal event, and I should suck it up for a few hours. I'm feeling increasingly isolated because it seems like everyone expects me to conform to an unrealistic standard. On the other hand, I don't want to regret standing up for myself, but I also worry that my refusal will permanently damage my relationship with Clara. I keep replaying the scenario and wondering if I overreacted, if I could have done something differently, or if this is really the point where I need to prioritize my own boundaries over family expectations. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after all of this? AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding after she completely disrespected my boundaries? I, 32F, have always been very close with my sister, Clara, 30F, until recently. We grew up together in a small town, went to the same schools, and were practically inseparable for most of our lives. We're very different in personality. She's extremely outgoing and dramatic, and I'm more introverted and private, but I've always admired her ability to be fearless. About a year ago, Clara got engaged to her fiancé, Mark, 33M. They've been together for 5 years, and I've met him several times and liked him well enough. When she first told me she wanted to get married, I was thrilled. I genuinely wanted to help her, but as the wedding planning progressed, things started to get stressful. She asked me to host the wedding at my house. At first, I was confused because my house is fairly modest, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, nothing luxurious. I asked why she wanted it at my place, and she said she wanted a cozy, intimate setting and that it would be personal and meaningful. I explained that my backyard isn't that large, parking is limited, and the house isn't suitable for more than maybe 25 to 30 people. She insisted she could make it work and started envisioning a wedding of at least 100 guests. I tried to reason with her. I said, I think it's just not realistic to have that many people here. My backyard can barely fit 20 chairs comfortably, and I can't provide bathrooms for 100 people. Maybe you should consider a local hall or renting a venue. She waved me off and said I was overreacting. Over the next few months, things got worse. She began inviting people without asking me, telling caterers and rental companies they could use my backyard and expecting me to handle setup. I told her multiple times that I wasn't comfortable with strangers coming into my home and that I didn't want the responsibility of hosting such a large event. She called me dramatic and selfish for not bending. Then about 2 weeks ago, she told me that she had already paid a decorator, rented tents, and hired a small band, all assuming my house would be available. I was shocked because she hadn't asked me at all. I reminded her that I had already said no several times and that my house wasn't suitable for her plans. She started yelling, saying I was ruining her wedding and accusing me of not caring about her family. At this point, I told her firmly that I would not host the wedding. I offered to help find a venue, assist with decorations at the venue, or even help coordinate the event, but my home was not an option. She immediately went silent, then sent me a long text listing every reason I was selfish, including that I was ruining her dream wedding, that I should sacrifice for family, and that I was choosing comfort over love. I didn't respond. The next day, my parents called me and told me I was being too rigid and that I should find a way to compromise. I explained my reasons. My house cannot safely or comfortably host that many people. I don't have the time or energy to manage such a large event at home, and I've already made my boundaries clear multiple times. They said they understood, but also implied that I was letting Clara down and that I should reconsider. Since then, Clara has mostly ignored me, except for a few passive-aggressive comments about me, not caring about her happiness when talking to mutual friends or family. Our communication has been tense. I don't know if she's planning to move forward with the wedding at a venue or will try to pressure me again. I feel bad because I don't want to hurt her, but I also don't want to compromise my boundaries and risk having my home damaged or hosting something I can't handle. I understand weddings are important, but I feel like she's been incredibly disrespectful of my wishes. I even offered alternatives, but she's fixated on my house as the location. My parents are caught in the middle, and I can sense their frustration, but also their desire for family harmony. I'm starting to feel guilty, though. Am I really being the bad sister here? I feel like my refusal is reasonable and necessary, but Clara's reaction and my family's subtle pressure are making me second-guess myself. I don't want to damage our relationship permanently, but I also feel like giving in would set a precedent that my boundaries don't matter. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding at my home after she ignored my repeated boundaries? Or am I justified in protecting my space and sanity, even if it disappoints her? AITA for refusing to let my brother stay in my house after he moved back to town? So, this is a long one, and I'll try to keep it as clear as possible. I, 32F, have always been close with my younger brother, Jake, 28M. Growing up, we were the classic sibling duo. He was a bit of a wild card, and I was the responsible one, but we always had each other's backs. After college, he bounced around a bit, moving from city to city for different jobs and never really settling down. I, on the other hand, stayed in our hometown, got a stable job, bought a small house, and have been trying to build a sense of stability for myself. A few months ago, Jay called me out of the blue. He sounded desperate. Apparently, his latest job ended abruptly, and he was moving back to our hometown with no place to stay. He didn't give much detail, just said he was between options, and asked if he could crash at my place for a few weeks while he got back on his feet. I was hesitant from the start. My house is not huge, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, and I have my partner, Matt, living with me. Our home is kind of our sanctuary. I've let friends stay over occasionally, but that's usually a night or two, not weeks at a time. I explained this to Jake and said I could help him look for a place or let him stay at a cheap Airbnb temporarily, but I didn't want him moving in. He got upset, saying I was being cold and not family-oriented. I reminded him that he has a job and some savings and that I wasn't trying to shut him out, but just wanted to protect my space. A week later, he shows up at my door. Not kidding. He literally drove 5 hours to show up unannounced. I was furious but tried to stay calm. I told him again that he couldn't stay. He insisted he had nowhere else to go and said he'd only stay a few days until he figured something out. I told him that a few days had already stretched into a week last time he stayed over after college, and I wasn't comfortable with it. He started crying, which made me feel bad, but I stood my ground. Jake ended up staying with a friend of ours temporarily, but not without throwing some guilt trips. He texted me almost daily about how hurt he was that I didn't support my own family, and he made passive-aggressive posts on social media implying I didn't care about him. Matt and I tried to ignore it, but it was stressful. Fast forward to last week, Jake tells me he found a job in town and has an apartment. He asks if he can store some of his furniture at my place while he moves in. I told him no. My house isn't a storage unit, and I don't want his things cluttering my space. He got angry and accused me of never being there for him. I should note a few things. Jake has a history of not respecting boundaries. Growing up, he would frequently take my stuff without asking, borrow money and not pay it back, and even moved in with me once after a breakup and stayed for 6 months, leaving my place in a mess. I haven't held a grudge, but I've been cautious ever since. After refusing to store his furniture, he started telling mutual friends that I was selfish and cold, which hurt because I've always tried to help my friends and family in other ways. I've given him advice, helped him job hunt, and even lent him money in the past. But I also value my personal space and mental health. Now, here's the kicker. Jake called me yesterday, completely upset, saying our parents think I'm in the wrong and that I should help my brother like any good sister would. He claims I'm ruining our relationship by refusing to let him stay or store his things. He even threatened to stop talking to me if I don't make it up to him. I feel stuck. I want to support Jake, but I also can't let him take over my life. My boundaries seem clear to me. I'm not comfortable with him living in my house or using it as storage. But apparently, to him and our parents, that makes me a terrible sister. I feel like I'm being reasonable and protecting my home and mental health, but I also don't want to completely alienate my brother. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to let my brother stay in my house and refusing to store his furniture, even though he is nowhere else temporarily. I want to be supportive, but I also need to maintain boundaries. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé move in with me, even though he's family now. I, 28F, live in a fairly small apartment in the city. It's a one-bedroom, so space is already tight, but I love it. I rent it myself, pay my bills, and generally enjoy having a personal space that feels like my own. My younger sister, Lily, 26F, has been dating her fiancé, Matt, 30M, for about 4 years. They got engaged last year and have been talking about marriage ever since. I've always gotten along reasonably well with Matt, though I'll admit we aren't particularly close. He's friendly, polite, and all that, but we have very different lifestyles. He's extroverted, social, and tends to be loud, whereas I value quiet and alone time. About a month ago, Lily called me in a panic. Apparently, Matt's apartment lease was ending unexpectedly because the building was being sold, and he didn't have a new place lined up. Lily begged me to let him stay with me temporarily until he found a new apartment. She framed it as a week or two situation, just enough time for him to get back on his feet. I told her straight up that I didn't think it would work. My apartment is tiny, and I value my personal space. I work from home, and having a roommate, even temporarily, would make it hard to concentrate. I also mentioned that having him here might create tension, since our lifestyles are so different. Lily seemed shocked and upset. She said I was being selfish and reminded me that he's basically family now, and family helps each other out in times of need. I offered some alternatives instead. I suggested he could stay at a nearby friend's place temporarily, or that they could look into short-term sublets or Airbnb options. I even offered to help cover part of a short-term rental if money was a concern. Lily insisted that none of those options were ideal and that family support should come first. She kept calling me selfish over text and said she couldn't believe I wouldn't help her future husband, especially since I had no real excuse not to. After a week of back and forth, she became increasingly frustrated and started involving Matt in the conversation. He texted me politely at first, thanking me for considering it, but then he started pushing more, saying things like, "It would really help me out, and I promise it won't be a big deal." He assured me he would be quiet and respectful, and that he could work from a co-working space to avoid being in my hair. I still refused. I explained that it's not a matter of trust or manners, but about the practicality of having someone else living in such a small space. I also said that I value boundaries and that letting someone stay in my apartment against my comfort level would create tension and resentment, which isn't good for anyone. That didn't go over well. Lily got very upset and told me that my refusal was hurting her feelings and that I was being cold and unreasonable. Matt also expressed disappointment, though he tried to be understanding. Lily even brought up past situations where I had borrowed things from her or needed help with other minor things, implying that I owed her this. I explained that those situations were different because they were short-term favors and didn't involve someone living with me indefinitely. Things escalated when Lily started bringing it up at family gatherings. My parents took a neutral stance at first, but she kept emphasizing that I was refusing to help Matt and, by extension, hurting her. One day, she said something along the lines of, "You're treating him like a stranger, but he's going to be my husband. You wouldn't deny family, right?" That really got to me because it implied that I'm a bad sister if I don't automatically give up my personal space. I ended up getting into a heated argument with her in front of my parents, telling her that just because someone is family by marriage doesn't mean I have to invite them into my home, especially when it affects my mental health and daily life. I also said that love and support aren't only about offering your home. They can take other forms, like helping with the apartment search, providing financial advice, or just being emotionally supportive. After that, Lily stopped talking to me for a few days, and our texts have been tense. Matt eventually found a temporary sublet, and while he seems grateful, Lily still gives me cold shoulders whenever we interact. My parents think I was within my rights, but said I could have handled it more gracefully. A few mutual friends have asked me if I feel guilty, saying that family should step up in times like this. Honestly, I feel like I made the right decision because I know myself, my space, and my limits. I didn't treat him disrespectfully. I just said it wouldn't work for me. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé move in with me, even temporarily, because it disrupts my space and lifestyle, even though he's now family. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of a family secret. I, 29F, have always had a complicated relationship with my family, mostly because of my parents' choices and my older sister's personality. My sister, Emily, 32F, is getting married in 3 months, and honestly, I am dreading the whole thing. It's not that I don't want her to be happy. I genuinely do. But there's a family secret that has recently come to light, and it has made it impossible for me to celebrate this wedding in good conscience. To give some context, Emily has always been the golden child. Growing up, she was perfect in everyone's eyes, smart, beautiful, charming. I, on the other hand, was the troublemaker or quiet one, depending on the narrative that was convenient for my parents at the time. I had a rough time during my teenage years. I struggled with anxiety and depression, and my parents were largely dismissive of my problems. Emily, meanwhile, was always treated like royalty. That dynamic created a lot of resentment between us, although we never really talked about it. Fast forward to last year, after a long period of limited contact, I discovered something about our family that completely shook me. I learned that Emily's success, particularly academically and socially, was not entirely her own. My parents had been financially and academically supporting her in ways they never supported me. This included paying for private tutors for subjects I could never afford help in, buying gifts and opportunities that I had to forego, and even manipulating teachers and administrators to ensure Emily got scholarships or accolades. At first, I was furious. I confronted my parents, and they initially denied it. Then, after I insisted on proof, they admitted it. They said it was all for Emily's future, and that I should be grateful because I had different strengths. This revelation made me realize that a lot of my struggles and insecurities were directly tied to the fact that my parents had never given me the same opportunities they gave her. It wasn't just favoritism, it was active disadvantage. I tried to come to terms with it, but it was hard. I started talking to Emily about it, cautiously at first, hoping that maybe she didn't know. To my shock, she was fully aware and unapologetic. She told me that my parents had always made it clear that she was their priority and that I should just accept it. She didn't seem upset that I had suffered while she thrived. In fact, she seemed almost proud of how she had benefited. That conversation hurt me deeply. I couldn't reconcile my sister's wedding and the joy surrounding it with the knowledge that the foundation of our family's perfect image was built on my pain. When Emily announced the wedding date, I knew I had a decision to make. On one hand, I wanted to support her. After all, she is my sister, and I've had moments of genuine closeness with her. On the other hand, attending the wedding felt like endorsing a family dynamic that had caused me years of hardship and emotional trauma. I tried to reason with myself that I could separate the person from the family history, but I realized I couldn't. Being there, surrounded by my parents celebrating Emily's perfection, would be unbearable. I sent Emily a message explaining that I could not attend her wedding. I tried to be honest, but respectful. I told her that while I loved her, I could not be part of an event that celebrates the culmination of a family system that treated me unfairly for decades. I expected some backlash, but I did not expect the response I got. Emily accused me of holding a grudge and trying to ruin her special day. My parents were furious, calling me selfish, dramatic, and ungrateful. They said that this was just family squabbling and that I was overreacting. They insisted that I attend, saying I was being immature and petty. I tried to explain that this isn't about a small disagreement. This is about years of systemic favoritism and emotional neglect. I even offered to have a private dinner with Emily before or after the wedding, but she said that wouldn't be the same and insisted that I was being unfair. My closest friends have been supportive, saying that I have the right to protect my mental health and that attending might do more harm than good. I also have considered that my absence might hurt Emily, but I feel that attending would hurt me more. I've been spiraling over this. Part of me feels guilty because I know this is one of the most important days of Emily's life, and I feel like I'm letting her down. The other part of me feels justified because my family has consistently invalidated my experiences, and this seems like a way of asserting boundaries and self-respect. Some family members have suggested that I'm overreacting, and I can't help but feel that everyone is more concerned about appearances than the truth. Now, my parents have threatened to exclude me from other family events and have implied that my relationship with Emily will be permanently damaged if I stick to my decision. Emily has said she can't understand how I could prioritize my feelings over her wedding. I have a close friend who has suggested I write a letter explaining my absence and the reasons behind it, so that Emily at least understands where I'm coming from, but I don't know if that will help or just make things worse. I have no doubt that my absence will cause a major family conflict. I am mentally preparing for being labeled the villain, the ungrateful sister, or worse. But at the same time, I feel that attending would betray my own sense of self and force me to participate in a celebration that is, at least in part, built on the unfair treatment I experienced. I feel trapped between wanting to preserve family relationships and protecting my own mental and emotional well-being. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of this family history and the way I was treated. I know people might say I should forgive and move on or don't let the past ruin the present, but this feels bigger than past grievances. It feels like acknowledging a system that actively harmed me for the benefit of others. I want to do what's right, but I also want to honor my own boundaries. I need an honest perspective. Am I the asshole for putting my own mental health and principles over attending a major family event? Or are my parents and sister right in expecting me to set aside my feelings and celebrate regardless? AITA for refusing to let my sister move back in after she kicked out her boyfriend? This has been going on for a while, and I'm not sure if I'm being unreasonable. I, 32F, live in a 3-bedroom apartment with my partner, Alex, 34M, in a moderately sized city. We've lived here for about 5 years, and we've been careful to make it our own space. It's not huge, but it's comfortable, and we both love having our routines and personal space. I work in marketing, and Alex is a software engineer. We're both pretty busy, but we make time to host friends occasionally. My sister, Claire, 29F, has had a turbulent few years. She moved across the country for a job she ended up hating, broke up with her long-term boyfriend, and came back home to stay with our parents for a few months. She has a history of being impulsive and making decisions without thinking through the consequences, which has often caused problems with the family. She's always been incredibly dramatic and sometimes manipulative, but I've tried to support her through her rough patches. Recently, Claire started dating someone new, and things escalated quickly. They moved in together within 2 months of dating. From what I gathered, she was thrilled at first, but it didn't take long before things went south. Apparently, her boyfriend became controlling and verbally abusive. I don't know all the details, but she described several incidents that sounded alarming. She finally decided she couldn't take it anymore and kicked him out of the apartment. That's when she called me in a panic, saying she had nowhere else to go. Here's where it gets tricky. She asked if she could move into my apartment temporarily until she figured out her next steps. At first, I hesitated. I know Claire has a history of staying for temporary periods that end up lasting months, sometimes over a year. Plus, my apartment is not huge, and adding her back would disrupt our routines and space. But I also understand that she was genuinely in a difficult situation, so I try to be compassionate. I told her I would think about it, and I asked Alex how he felt. He immediately said no. He pointed out that we've had experiences in the past where family members moved in temporarily and ended up overstaying, causing tension, and he didn't want to repeat that. He also noted that our apartment was already at its limit in terms of shared space, and adding someone else would make it feel crowded. I tried to compromise. I suggested that she stay for a very limited time, maybe a week or two, so she could get her bearings and start looking for another place. Claire agreed, but the week turned into 2, and almost immediately, she started acting like she was home for the long term. She rearranged furniture, left her belongings everywhere, and was constantly using our shared spaces without regard for Alex or me. She also began giving unsolicited advice about how we should manage things in our apartment, like what groceries we should buy and how to clean. It was small things, but they piled up quickly. After about 3 weeks, I sat her down and said it was time to seriously find her own place. I reminded her that I had agreed to help temporarily, but our apartment is our home, and we cannot have her living with us indefinitely. She got upset and accused me of not being a good sister and said I was choosing Alex over family. She brought up the time I didn't let her borrow money to pay off a credit card a few years ago and framed it as evidence that I don't care about her well-being. She also said that she needed a safe place and that I was being cruel by making her feel unwelcome. I tried to explain that I do care, but there are limits. I even offered to help her look for apartments, helped her write emails to landlords, and suggested temporary Airbnb options, but she said none of those were acceptable. She started passive-aggressively moving more of her things into our closets and leaving dirty dishes around. Alex and I started to argue frequently about her presence. He's stressed at work, and the constant tension at home was affecting both of us. We considered letting her stay longer, but I realized I was becoming resentful, and our relationship was suffering. The breaking point came last week. Claire left for a few hours to meet a friend, and when she came back, she tried to bring home a large bag of groceries and claimed she would share them with us. The problem was that she had bought mostly junk food and things that we are very specific about not eating due to health reasons. When I told her she could store them in her room instead of the kitchen, she threw a tantrum, saying I was controlling and ungrateful. That's when I decided I had had enough. I told her she had to find another place immediately and set a hard deadline for the end of the week. She cried and shouted at me, saying I had abandoned her in a time of need, but I stood firm. I even helped her call a couple of friends and agencies to see if she could get temporary housing, but she refused to consider staying anywhere else. I've now gone no contact with her for the past 2 days. She's been calling me constantly, leaving messages on my phone, and sending angry texts accusing me of being selfish, heartless, and prioritizing Alex over family. My parents are also upset because they think I could have handled the situation more delicately, though they also understand that our apartment isn't a long-term solution for her. I feel guilty sometimes because I do care about her, and she was genuinely in a tough situation. On the other hand, I also feel like I have the right to protect my home and my mental health. Living with Claire has historically been chaotic, and I'm not sure I can handle that kind of stress again. Alex and I are on the same page, and we've agreed that our boundaries are reasonable. But my sister, our parents, and even some friends are telling me I should be more accommodating. I want to help her, but I also don't want to sacrifice my well-being or my relationship for the sake of someone else's instability. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister move back in permanently after she kicked out her boyfriend. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her bridal party choices. This is going to be long, so I'll try to give all the context. I, 28F, have a younger sister, Emily, 25F. Growing up, we were close. Most people assumed we were twins because we look so much alike, but as adults, our relationship has gotten a little strained. We have different social circles and personalities. I tend to be more introverted and private, while Emily is extremely outgoing and loves being the center of attention. Emily got engaged about a year ago. At first, I was excited for her, but as soon as wedding planning started, things got tense. One of the major issues is her bridal party. Emily invited 5 bridesmaids, her 3 best friends from college, a coworker she became close to, and her cousin, who is not particularly close to either of us. The only people she did not include in the bridal party were me and our other sister, Clara, 30F. I was shocked when I found out. I tried to ask Emily about it in a non-confrontational way, saying, "Hey, I thought you wanted me to be part of the wedding party." She got defensive and said she wanted her bridal party to be only her closest friends and that she didn't think it would work for me. She said something about me being too serious and not fitting the vibe she wanted. Clara was similarly hurt. She's never had issues with socializing and has always been supportive of Emily. But Emily told her that she didn't want Clara in the bridal party either because it was already full. I felt really excluded. Emily and I have always had a special bond, and I can't understand why I wasn't considered close enough to be in her wedding party. I wasn't asking to be maid of honor or anything. I just wanted to be a bridesmaid. I expressed my feelings to Emily a couple of weeks after she announced the bridal party, telling her that I was hurt and that I didn't understand why I wasn't included. She got upset, saying I was making a big deal out of nothing and that I needed to respect her decisions. She also accused me of trying to control her wedding and making her feel guilty. At this point, I decided to step back and not press the issue. I wanted to avoid family drama. I try to be supportive in other ways. I offered to help with the guest list, RSVP management, and even planning small parts of the wedding. I wanted to be involved without being a bridesmaid. Emily thanked me for some of these things, but she clearly started to distance herself emotionally. She began venting about wedding planning to our parents and friends, but deliberately excluded me from conversations. It felt like she was holding a grudge. Things came to a head about 2 months ago. Emily decided to throw a bachelorette party in a city about 4 hours away. The bridal party and a few of her friends were invited. I wasn't invited. Clara wasn't invited either. Our mom was invited, but that's it. I was hurt, but try not to let it show. When I mentioned to Emily that I felt left out and would have loved to celebrate with her, she replied that it was not my kind of event and that she didn't want me there because I might kill the vibe. I honestly felt blindsided. Since then, Emily has been subtly excluding me from other wedding-related events like dress fittings and engagement photos. I offered to go anyway, but she said it was too late for me to join. At this point, my feelings have shifted from hurt to anger. It seems like Emily is more concerned with appearances and having the perfect image than including her actual family. Recently, she sent out her official wedding invitations. I noticed that the seating chart had me and Clara at a table with distant relatives we hardly know, while all of the bridal party and their plus ones were at prime tables near the couple. That was the last straw for me. I felt completely invisible and unimportant. After thinking about it for weeks, I decided to tell Emily I wouldn't be attending the wedding. I explained that I couldn't celebrate a day that she clearly did not want me involved in. I said that her wedding is important to her, but that it felt like a celebration for everyone but me and Clara. Emily freaked out. She called me selfish and said I was ruining her day. She even accused me of trying to embarrass her in front of her friends and family. I told her that wasn't my intention, but I couldn't pretend to be happy while being treated like an outsider. Since then, our family has been split. My parents are disappointed in both of us. They think I should just go, and Emily should be more inclusive, but they understand why we both feel the way we do. Clara is torn. She doesn't want to side against Emily, but understands my feelings. Emily has not spoken to me since I sent my message declining the invitation. Friends have weighed in online, and opinions are divided. Some say I overreacted and that I should go to the wedding for the sake of family. Others say I'm justified for standing up for myself and refusing to be treated as an afterthought. I've been second-guessing myself. On one hand, I really don't want to miss this huge family event. On the other hand, I can't shake the feeling that attending would be pretending everything is fine when it clearly isn't. I keep thinking about all the subtle exclusions, the bachelorette party, the dress fittings, the prime seating, and it hurts too much. I also worry that showing up would be seen as me giving in, which Emily might use to continue treating me like an outsider. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of the way she has excluded me from the bridal party and wedding events. I feel like I'm standing up for myself, but part of me wonders if I'm overreacting or being petty. My parents are hoping for reconciliation before the wedding, but Emily isn't willing to talk unless I change my mind. I'm exhausted, hurt and conflicted. I want to do the right thing, but I also can't ignore how disrespected I feel. Have I handled this poorly, or am I justified in prioritizing my own emotional well-being? Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what could be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to let my brother's family stay in my house, even though they claim it's just for a few days. I, 34F, have always tried to maintain a healthy relationship with my younger brother, Tom, 30M, and his wife, Lisa, 29F, along with their 2 kids, Emma, 5, and Max, 3. We were close growing up, and I've always tried to help them when I could. That said, I also value my privacy and have boundaries that I'm very careful to uphold. Recently, a situation came up that I can't seem to get past without some doubt creeping in, so I'm here to figure out if I'm the asshole. A few months ago, Tom and Lisa's house was severely damaged in a flood. The city has been slow with repairs, and they ended up at a temporary Airbnb that isn't child-friendly and is pretty expensive. They reached out to me, saying they were hoping to crash at my place for a short while until their home is ready. Initially, I thought it was reasonable. I have a 3-bedroom house with a finished basement, and it seemed like we could make it work for a week or so. The problem started when they began detailing how they'd stay. They told me they'd bring all their stuff, clothes, toys, kitchenware, and that they need to store all of it in my basement and guest room. Then they mentioned their friends might also visit occasionally, and they assumed I'd let them use my car whenever they wanted. I tried to set some boundaries gently, saying the house has limited space and my car is off limits for anything other than emergencies, but they brushed it off, saying it would be just for a few days and that they'd be super considerate. As I thought more about it, I realized that a few days could stretch into weeks if I agreed. I live alone, and my home is my sanctuary. I have a strict routine and mental health practices that include quiet time, meditation, and a predictable schedule. I was worried that a full household invasion, even temporary, would disrupt everything I've worked hard to maintain. I explained this to Tom, trying to be honest without being hurtful, but he got defensive. He said I was being selfish and that families should support each other, especially in emergencies. I offered alternatives. I suggested they extend their Airbnb stay, look for a vacation rental, or even that I could help financially with lodging for a limited time. Tom and Lisa didn't seem interested. They kept insisting it would be easy and that I owe them because I've let them borrow things in the past. I reminded them that borrowing items is very different from hosting a family of 4 indefinitely. The tension escalated when Tom hinted that our parents might intervene if I didn't agree. They started saying things like, "Mom would never understand why you're being difficult, and everyone helps family in need." I felt cornered. I don't dislike my family. I just don't think it's reasonable to expect me to rearrange my entire life and give up my personal space for an extended period. I finally told them no, and that if they wanted to stay somewhere temporarily, I could help them find another solution, but I couldn't host them. They weren't happy. Tom accused me of hiding behind excuses and said that I would regret turning family away if something bad happened while they were displaced. Lisa was quiet but seemed resentful. Since then, our communication has been strained. They've gone back to their Airbnb, but I can feel the tension. My parents are frustrated too, saying I should compromise for family and that I don't understand what it means to help. I've tried to explain that helping doesn't always mean sacrificing everything you've built for someone else, but they don't seem to see it that way. I genuinely feel I acted responsibly by setting clear boundaries. I wasn't trying to be cruel. I was trying to protect my mental health, my home, and the routines that keep me stable. I even offered practical support that didn't involve them living in my house. I'm not sure if my expectations were unreasonable, or if I should have found a way to let them stay, even temporarily. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to let my brother and his family stay in my house, even though they claim it's just for a few days. AITA for refusing to help my sister after she ruined my wedding. I, 32F, have always had a complicated relationship with my younger sister, Lily, 28F. Growing up, we were close in some ways, but there was always a simmering tension between us that never fully went away. She was ambitious, manipulative at times, and I often felt like I had to tread carefully around her to avoid conflict. Despite this, I wanted to believe we could be adults and support each other, especially after I got engaged to my now husband, Mark, 34M. The wedding planning was stressful but exciting. I had been dreaming about this day for years, and I wanted everything to be perfect. Lily, however, always seemed to have her own ideas about how things should be, and she wasn't shy about pushing them. Early on, I asked her to be my maid of honor. She was thrilled, or at least that's what I thought. I thought that giving her this role would make her feel included and perhaps curb some of her controlling tendencies. I was wrong. As the wedding approached, her behavior became increasingly erratic. She insisted on having a say in the seating arrangements, the playlist, and even the wedding menu. I tried to compromise where I could, but she always escalated things, turning minor disagreements into full-blown arguments. A month before the wedding, she demanded that she be allowed to bring her friend group from out of state, insisting they needed a VIP table and threatening to boycott the wedding if I refused. Mark and I stood firm, explaining that we had already booked catering and seating, and we couldn't accommodate extra people. Lily became cold and distant after that, but I chalked it up to stress. 2 weeks before the wedding, she asked if she could borrow a designer dress she had seen in one of my social media posts. I agreed, thinking it was a small favor. When she came over to pick it up, she casually mentioned that she had also borrowed a pair of my heels and some jewelry from my closet without asking. I was furious, but didn't want to start a confrontation so close to the wedding. I told her I expected everything back in pristine condition before the day. Then, the nightmare began. The night before the wedding, I noticed that the dress had a noticeable stain on the hem. The heels had scuff marks, and one of the earrings had a bent post. I confronted Lily, and she shrugged it off, saying she didn't have time to fix it and that I shouldn't be so controlling. At this point, I had no time to repair or replace the items. In a panic, I called the bridal shop, but they couldn't expedite anything overnight. Mark and I spent hours trying to salvage the situation ourselves. On the day of the wedding, I was emotionally drained. When Lily walked down the aisle, I was struck by how inappropriate her behavior had been. She wore the dress anyway, which looked different from the rest of the bridal party, and she made several pointed comments during the ceremony about how stressful weddings are for everyone, not just the bride. I tried to ignore it, focusing on Mark and our vows. After the ceremony, things got worse. During the reception, she started loudly criticizing the food and the music, claiming it was not up to her standards. When our guests tried to defend the choices, she snapped at them, creating an awkward, intense atmosphere. By the time the speeches came around, I was trembling with anger. During my maid of honor speech, she interrupted me multiple times, making jokes at my expense and drawing attention to minor mishaps that I had already apologized for. I was humiliated. Mark tried to intervene, but she brushed him off and continued her tirade. When it was time to leave for the honeymoon, Lily refused to participate in the send-off photos and made a scene about not being included in every detail. I was exhausted, heartbroken, and at that point, I finally confronted her in private. I told her that her behavior had been unacceptable, disrespectful, and selfish, and that I couldn't trust her anymore. I also explained that I would not be helping her in the future if she expected favors or assistance from me. She laughed and told me I was overreacting, claiming that I was too sensitive and that our guests were just overreacting. After returning from the honeymoon, Lily began messaging me, asking for help with various things: her work projects, moving into a new apartment, and even financial advice. Each time, I reminded her of how she had treated me during my wedding, but she accused me of holding grudges and never forgiving her. I finally blocked her for a week because I couldn't handle the constant barrage of guilt-tripping and manipulative messages. Now, several months later, she has reached out again, pleading for my help with a major career opportunity that requires me to provide a reference and some financial support. Mark and I have discussed it at length, and we both agree that I cannot trust her to respect boundaries or act responsibly. I responded to her politely but firmly, stating that I am unable to assist her and that she will need to find support elsewhere. This has caused a huge blow-up. Our parents are upset with me, saying that I should forgive and forget, and that family should always help each other. Some mutual friends think I'm being too harsh, arguing that everyone makes mistakes, and she's probably learned from hers. I feel conflicted because I do value family, but I also feel that boundaries are essential, and after what she did at my wedding, I don't feel obligated to put myself through more stress for her. I've been criticized heavily on social media by distant relatives who think I'm being cold and unloving, which makes me question if I'm overreacting. At the same time, every time I recall the chaos she caused during one of the most important days of my life, I feel justified in keeping my distance. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to help my sister after she ruined my wedding and continually disrespected me? Or am I supposed to overlook her actions just because she's family? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's destination wedding because of her guests? I, 32F, have always had a complicated relationship with my sister, Emma, 34F. Growing up, we were close, but as we got older, the differences in our lifestyles and personalities became more pronounced. Emma has always been the type to go big or go home. Her house is always spotless, her wardrobe is flawless, and she thrives on attention. I, on the other hand, am more laid-back, introverted, and prefer smaller gatherings. This dynamic has caused tension at times, but we generally manage to get along. Recently, Emma announced that she was getting married. The wedding itself wouldn't have been a huge issue if it weren't for the fact that she planned a destination wedding in Italy. The location sounded beautiful, and I genuinely wanted to celebrate her happiness. The problem arose when she started telling me about the guest list. From the beginning, I noticed she had invited several people who I had bad experiences with in the past. People who had been manipulative, rude, or judgmental towards me. I assumed she was just trying to avoid family drama. But as she listed more names, my anxiety began to rise. Among the guests were a former best friend who had ghosted me during a difficult period in my life, a coworker who had spread rumors about me years ago, and even a few relatives who have always been particularly cruel or dismissive towards me. When I tried to talk to her about my concerns, she brushed me off. She said things like, "It's my wedding. You can't expect me to exclude people just because of your personal feelings. And I've invited these people because they're important to me, not because of you." I understood her point of view, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being put in an uncomfortable situation. I suggested attending only the ceremony and skipping the reception, but she said that wouldn't work as it would look bad to the guests and family. I also considered attending, but staying out of interactions with these people, but I realized that would essentially mean isolating myself for the entire wedding week. The more I thought about it, the more stressed and anxious I became. I started having trouble sleeping and felt physically ill at the thought of spending several days around people who had caused me emotional harm. I tried explaining this to Emma, but she accused me of being dramatic and selfish. She said that my refusal to attend would ruin her wedding and that I was choosing my feelings over family. She even cried during one phone call and said she couldn't believe I would do this to her. After much deliberation, I decided to decline the invitation. I wrote her a detailed message explaining my reasons, my past experiences with some of the guests, my anxiety, and my belief that attending would be detrimental to my mental health. I emphasized that I wanted her to be happy and that I would celebrate her marriage in other ways, like sending a gift and planning a private celebration with her after she returned from Italy. I also offered a video call during parts of the wedding if she wanted, but I made it clear that I couldn't be physically present. The reaction was immediate and intense. Emma was furious. She called me selfish, accused me of not caring about her happiness, and said that I was turning my personal grievances into a moral high ground. She said our parents were disappointed, and that my absence would embarrass her in front of her friends and extended family. Some of our mutual friends also reached out, saying that I was overreacting and that I should get over the past for the sake of my sister. A few months later, Emma sent me pictures from the wedding. I saw smiling faces, a perfect ceremony, and a reception full of laughter. Deep down, I was happy for her, but I also felt a pang of regret that I hadn't been there, especially because it was a once-in-a-lifetime event. Afterwards, the tension between Emma and me worsened. She has made passive-aggressive comments during family gatherings, and our conversations are often short and uncomfortable. I still think I made the decision that was healthiest for me, but I can't help wondering if I was overly rigid or if I should have tried harder to compromise. I feel like I lost something important, but I also know that putting myself in an environment that triggers anxiety and brings back past trauma wouldn't have been fair to me. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's destination wedding because I couldn't handle some of the guests. I know weddings are supposed to be joyful occasions where family comes together, but I also believe that protecting my mental health is crucial. I've stuck to my boundaries, but it has caused a rift that I'm not sure can be repaired easily. I want my sister to be happy, but I also want to feel respected and safe. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after a decade-long family secret came out. This is going to be long because it involved a lot of family history, so bear with me. I, 33M, have a younger sister, Emily, 30F, and for as long as I can remember, we had a relatively normal sibling relationship. We fought like siblings do, but we also confided in each other, and for the most part, we were close. Our parents divorced when Emily was 10 and I was 13, but somehow we managed to stay close through the transition, though I always took on a lot of responsibility for her. Fast forward to about a year ago. Emily got engaged to a man named Andrew, and I was genuinely happy for her. I met him a few times, and while he seemed a little intense, he came across as polite and supportive. Their relationship moved fast, and I'll admit, I was a little wary of how quickly things were progressing. Still, I told myself it wasn't my business as long as Emily was happy. Everything changed last month. I was at my parents' house, helping them clean out the attic, when I stumbled across a box of old documents and letters. Among them were some envelopes labeled with my name and Emily's from when we were kids. Curious, I opened them and found a set of letters from a man named Robert. The letters were addressed to my mother, but what really shocked me was the content. Robert claimed that he had been in a relationship with my mother while my dad was still married to her, and that Emily might not actually be my father's biological daughter. I froze. I read through the letters, and there were dates, names, and even photographs that made it painfully clear that Emily could indeed be Robert's daughter. I felt my heart drop because this wasn't just a small detail. It changed the foundation of everything I thought I knew about my family. I confronted my mother. She admitted that she had had an affair years ago, but insisted that it was complicated and that she had never told anyone because it was too messy and painful. She said she had always intended to tell Emily when the time was right, but had never gotten around to it. I asked about my dad, who she claimed had no idea, and she begged me not to tell Emily until she could figure out how to do it gently. I agreed initially, but keeping the secret was eating me alive. I knew Emily would want to know eventually, and I also knew that she had a right to know before her wedding. I tried to think of a way to tell her delicately, but my mother was adamant that I wait. This put me in a terrible position because I didn't want to betray my mother, but I also didn't want to see Emily blindsided in the worst possible way on her wedding day. About a week before the wedding, my conscience finally won. I went to Emily and asked if we could talk privately. She sensed something was wrong immediately. I sat her down and, as gently as I could, explained that there was a possibility that her biological father might not be who she thought he was. I told her everything I'd found in the attic, including the letters and photographs, and that I'd tried to talk to our mother about it. Emily went pale. At first, she couldn't speak. Then she asked me repeatedly if I was joking or if I had somehow misunderstood. I told her I was 100% serious. She ran out of the house crying, and I didn't hear from her for several hours. When she did finally call, she was furious. Not at me personally, but at the situation as a whole. She said she didn't know how she could trust anyone in our family anymore, and that she wasn't ready to get married under these circumstances. The wedding was scheduled for 2 days later. Emily texted me, saying she wanted to postpone it, but Andrew insisted they go forward because all the arrangements were non-refundable. Emily felt trapped and asked me if I would attend to at least support her, but I told her that I couldn't. I explained that being there while she tried to act like everything was normal would be unbearable for me, and that I didn't want to enable anyone pretending that nothing was wrong. She was hurt, but understood, at least verbally. My parents are now furious at me. They say I overstepped, that it wasn't my place to tell Emily such personal information, and that I ruined the wedding. They claim I should have kept the secret, or at least let Emily handle it her way. Even Andrew's family has been snide about me, trying to ruin a happy occasion. I've had some friends tell me I was right to prioritize honesty, while others say I should have stayed out of it entirely. I feel guilty because Emily is devastated and my relationship with my parents is now strained. But I also feel like I did the right thing by not letting her walk into a lifelong commitment without knowing the truth about her family. I'm not sure if I could have kept my conscience quiet any longer without feeling like I was betraying her. So, AITA for telling my sister about her potential biological father and refusing to attend her wedding. Since then, Emily has been staying with a friend. Our parents haven't spoken to me except through curt messages, and the wedding went ahead. But from what I hear, it was tense and awkward. I don't know if our family will ever fully recover from this, and I'm still struggling to figure out if I really did the right thing. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay in my house after a major falling out. So, a bit of context first. I, 28F, have a younger sister, Emily, 25F, and we've always been close, though lately, things have been a little tense. Emily has been dating this guy, Jake, 27M, for almost 3 years now. For the most part, I liked him. He was funny, charming, and seemed genuinely kind. But over the past year, I started noticing some red flags in how he treated Emily. He could be dismissive of her opinions, subtly controlling about her social interactions, and occasionally passive-aggressive when things didn't go his way. I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt, thinking maybe I was just being protective or too critical. Now, about me, I live in a moderately sized apartment in the city. I moved in about 4 years ago and have put a lot of effort into making it my own. I enjoy hosting close friends occasionally, but I value my privacy and boundaries highly. My space is my sanctuary, and I've learned over the years to be very selective about who I invite over. The incident that led to the fallout started a couple of months ago. Emily and Jake had an argument over something trivial, which escalated into them needing a temporary break. Emily called me, stressed out, asking if she could crash at my place for a few days while they figured things out. I agreed because she was my sister and I love her, and I wanted to support her. Things were fine at first, but then Jake started texting me nonstop, asking for updates on Emily, commenting on my apartment, and generally acting intrusive. I tried to ignore him, thinking he was just worried, but the texts kept coming. One night, Emily came home visibly upset. She said she and Jake had fought again, and she wanted to leave for a bit to clear her head. Before I could respond, Jake showed up at my apartment uninvited. I was shocked. He barged in, acting like he had every right to be there. I asked him to leave, explaining that Emily was staying with me temporarily and that he wasn't welcome to just show up, but he argued, saying he was concerned about Emily's well-being and that he was part of the family now. I was firm but polite, reiterating that he could not stay. Emily, surprisingly, backed me up, telling him to leave and that she needed space to think. After that night, the tension escalated. Jake started calling and texting Emily constantly, sometimes late at night. Emily was getting anxious and reached out to me again, asking if she could stay longer. I agreed, but set clear boundaries. Jake was not to come to my apartment, and I would not be involved in mediating their relationship. Emily understood and respected this. Things were calm for a few weeks, and Emily seemed to be using the time to reflect on the relationship. Then, out of nowhere, Jake started showing up at my building, leaving notes, and even waiting outside for her. I confronted him multiple times, making it clear that this behavior was not acceptable. I finally had to call the building security to escort him out. This, naturally, led to a huge blow-up. Emily was embarrassed and frustrated with Jake's behavior, but she was also upset with me for making him look bad. The situation came to a head last week. Emily called me, sobbing, saying that she and Jake had decided to take a break again after a heated argument. She asked if she could stay for an extended period this time, maybe a few weeks. I hesitated. I love my sister, but after everything that had happened, I didn't feel comfortable letting her stay if it meant Jake might try to come over again. I told her I would let her stay, but under one condition. Jake was absolutely not allowed in my apartment. She agreed, but I could tell she was conflicted. 2 days later, Jake somehow got the message that Emily was at my place. He showed up again, demanding to speak to her. I had had enough. I refused him entry, and when he tried to argue, I calmly told him he could leave or I would call the police. Emily was furious with me, saying I was taking sides and that I should at least let Jake in talk. I refused. Jake left, but not before yelling that I was being unreasonable and that I had ruined their relationship. Since then, Emily has been distant. She's staying with me, but barely talks to me. She's upset that I won't let Jake in and keeps saying that I'm being controlling. I understand that she loves him and wants to reconcile, but I also feel like I have a right to protect my home and my peace. I am genuinely worried that if I let him in, he will overstep boundaries, disrespect me, or make Emily uncomfortable. I know this sounds harsh, but I feel like I'm in a position where I have to choose between protecting my home and possibly damaging my relationship with my sister. Friends and other family members are divided. Some say I'm right to enforce boundaries, while others say I should just let him in for Emily's sake. I honestly don't know if I'm overreacting, but I also feel like I've been more than fair by letting Emily stay and making it clear that Jake isn't welcome. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé into my home after everything that has happened, even if it's causing a rift with Emily. AITA for refusing to let my sister stay with me after she abandoned her kids. I, 32F, have always considered myself the responsible one in my family. My younger sister, Jenna, 28F, on the other hand, has a long history of making impulsive decisions and relying on others to clean up after her. I love her, but our relationship has always been complicated because I end up carrying the weight of her choices. About 3 months ago, everything came to a head. Jenna called me late one Friday night, frantic and crying. She told me that she had left her 2 kids, ages 7 and 5, with a friend because she needed a break and that she was currently at a hotel in another city. Her plan was to stay there for a week, decompress, and then come back. She said she didn't want the kids with her because they stress me out, and she asked if I could take them for a while. I was shocked. I have my own apartment and a demanding full-time job, and while I love my niece and nephew, I'm not in a position to take on full-time childcare for a week, let alone indefinitely. I asked her why she didn't make arrangements with their father, who lives nearby and has legal custody rights, or at least with her parents, but she brushed it off, saying he was busy and that my parents wouldn't understand. I told her no. I explained that I couldn't take the kids on such short notice and that abandoning them in a hotel while she went off to relax was not something I could condone. She cried, pleaded, and even tried to guilt-trip me by saying I was the only responsible adult in the family who could handle them. I stuck to my guns and said that the kids needed stability, not an aunt who was essentially being forced into a babysitting role. The next day, she called again, this time threatening that if I didn't take the kids, she would have to call child services to report herself as overwhelmed, essentially leaving them in a temporary foster situation. I was furious. I reminded her that child services exist to protect children, not to be used as leverage. I also said that if she genuinely felt she couldn't care for them, she needed to take responsibility for that decision rather than dumping them on someone else. In the end, Jenna came back after 3 days, claiming she figured things out and that the hotel was expensive. She insisted that I had been cruel and unsupportive for not letting her kids stay with me. She said I could have just helped her out for a few days and that family should stick together. Our parents got involved too, with my mom saying I should have just helped because it's family, and my dad telling me I need to stop being so harsh on her. I tried explaining that helping doesn't mean enabling neglect or putting children in an unstable situation, but they seem more focused on keeping the peace than the well-being of the kids. Since then, Jenna has been distant. She occasionally texts me, but there's a lot of tension, and I get passive-aggressive comments from my parents about how I don't understand family loyalty. I feel like I did the right thing. My sister was being irresponsible, and the kids deserved better than being shuffled around like luggage. But I'm starting to wonder if I overreacted. My friends all think I was right, but I can't shake the feeling that maybe I should have helped her in some way, even temporarily. AITA for refusing to let my sister stay with me after she abandoned her kids? Here's some extra context. I have a very demanding job that doesn't allow me to work from home regularly. Taking care of 2 kids on short notice would have meant taking unpaid leave, which I simply couldn't afford. Jenna has a pattern of leaving responsibilities to others. She's done similar things in the past with her work, her apartment, and even with pets. I've helped her before, but this felt like crossing a line. I love my niece and nephew and would normally help with babysitting, but this situation felt different. It was sudden, reckless, and involved. Her completely abandoning her parental duties. My parents are emotionally manipulative. They often make me feel guilty for not putting family before myself, but I also know that their approach doesn't consider what's best for the children. After this incident, I've been thinking about setting firmer boundaries. I want to be supportive, but I don't want to be complicit in what I see as neglect. At the same time, I hate feeling like the villain in my family for simply protecting the children. I'm torn because I understand the stress of parenting, but I also feel strongly that abandoning children is not something to be brushed off as needing a break. I can't help but feel that if I had let her leave the kids with me, I would have been enabling a behavior that could have serious consequences for them. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to let my sister stay with me after she abandoned her kids. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé have our family home for free when he needs it more than I do. I, 32F, have always been the type of person who values boundaries and fairness. My parents passed away 5 years ago, leaving me and my younger sister, Emily, 28F, as the only heirs to our family home. My sister has always struggled financially, bouncing from one low-paying job to another, while I've been relatively stable, working in tech and managing to save enough to live comfortably. When the estate was settled, the house was legally in my name because I had insisted on taking on the responsibility of the mortgage and upkeep, as I was better positioned to handle it. My sister was fine with it at the time. She didn't seem interested in living there, and she had her own apartment in the city. Fast forward to now. Emily is engaged to a man named Tom, 30M. Tom comes from a difficult background and has been struggling to find stable work for years. Emily recently told me that they want to move into our family home after their wedding and suggested that I just let them live there rent-free since it's been in the family forever. I was taken aback. I explained that the house is my legal property and that I need it for my own living situation. I also pointed out that I've spent a significant amount of money maintaining it, everything from fixing the roof to repainting rooms and landscaping. Letting them live there rent-free would essentially mean giving away thousands of dollars of work and investment for free. Emily's response was that Tom needs it more than I do, and that family should help family. She said that Tom's living situation is unstable and that he's had some bad luck, so I should just make a sacrifice for the sake of family. I tried to reason with her. I said I could help them in other ways. Maybe lend them some money for a deposit on an apartment, or help them find a place they can afford. I even offered to cover some moving costs. She didn't like those suggestions. According to her, nothing I could do would be as meaningful as letting them live in the family home for free. She accused me of being selfish and heartless. Things escalated when Tom got involved. He told me bluntly that it wasn't fair for me to hog the house when he had nowhere stable to live. He argued that I was making a moral choice to prioritize comfort over family. I reminded him that it's not a moral choice. It's my property, and I have a right to decide who lives there. He said I was lacking compassion and thinking only of myself. Since then, my sister and Tom have started pressuring other family members, trying to get them to intervene and convince me to let them move in. Some of my cousins have contacted me, saying I should share the home with my own family, and that it's cruel to deny them a roof. Others have supported me, saying I'm not obligated to give them anything just because we're related. Here's where I might be the asshole. I admitted to Emily that I would be willing to sell the house and split the proceeds, letting her use her share toward buying her own place with Tom. She saw this as me being unreasonable, claiming I was turning it into a business transaction and that I don't understand what family really means. I explained that if the roles were reversed, I wouldn't expect anyone to give me their house for free, and that inheritance is meant to provide stability, not obligations. The situation has become tense. Emily refuses to speak to me unless I agree to let them live there. Tom continues to badger me, even sending messages at odd hours, insisting I need to be more generous and family-oriented. Other relatives are now taking sides. Some call me cold, while others call Emily and Tom entitled. I've reflected a lot on this, and I feel like I'm doing the right thing by protecting my home and my finances. But part of me wonders if I'm being too rigid. My sister grew up in that house, and I understand the sentimental value. Tom has had it rough, and I don't want to be unnecessarily harsh. On the other hand, I can't help but think that agreeing to let them live there for free would set a precedent that I might regret. The mortgage isn't cheap, maintenance costs pile up, and I'd essentially be sacrificing my financial security to solve their problems temporarily. I've considered compromising, maybe letting them stay for a few months at a discounted rent, or helping them find a different place nearby, but every suggestion seems to be rejected. Emily insists that only living in the family home counts as acceptable help. Tom insists that my refusal is a moral failing. I honestly feel stuck. I don't want to lose my sister, but I also can't let them dictate what happens with my property. Some friends have told me that I'm being completely reasonable and that inheritance doesn't obligate me to house anyone. Others have said that family dynamics are complicated and sometimes sacrifices are necessary to maintain relationships. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister and her fiancé live in our family home rent-free, even though they claim they need it more than I do. The tension is only growing, and I'm worried that this could permanently damage my relationship with my sister. I'm willing to compromise in ways that don't threaten my own stability, but it seems like any offer short of giving them the house for free is unacceptable to them. I've tried to explain that I'm open to support, but not at the cost of my own home. I've even suggested mediation to work through this with a neutral party, but Emily and Tom dismissed the idea. The rest of the family is divided, and I'm increasingly being portrayed as the villain simply for setting boundaries. I want to do right by my family, but I also want to protect myself. Where is the line between generosity and enabling entitlement? Have I crossed it, or am I justified in standing firm? AITA for refusing to let my sister stay in my house after she sabotaged my career? This all started about 2 years ago. I, 34F, have been working in the tech industry for over a decade and recently got promoted to a senior management position at a well-known company. It was the culmination of years of hard work and sacrifice, and I was genuinely proud of myself. My sister, Emma, 32F, has always struggled professionally. She switches jobs frequently, and her financial situation has never been stable. Growing up, we were close, but as we got older, our relationship became more strained, mostly because she tends to be manipulative and has a habit of turning every situation into a competition. When I got the promotion, I was ecstatic. I called Emma to share the news, expecting at least a little excitement from her. Instead, she sounded annoyed and immediately shifted the conversation to herself, complaining about her job and how unfair her manager was. I tried to keep the conversation light and congratulated myself in the sense of, I just wanted to share my good news, but she kept comparing herself to me, saying things like, well, if your job is so great, why aren't you making 6 figures yet? Or, I bet you only got that because of favoritism. It was frustrating, but I tried to let it go because, in my mind, I thought maybe she was just having a rough day. A few months later, my company announced a big client pitch that was crucial for my team. This project would be visible to upper management and could make or break further promotions. A friend of mine in the company accidentally mentioned to me that someone had heard a rumor that I had been mismanaging the team and misreporting project metrics. I was blindsided. I started digging, and after some investigation, I discovered that Emma had actually gotten access to some internal documents because she pretended she needed them for career advice. She then sent selective emails and fabricated reports to my boss, making it seem like I was incompetent and untrustworthy. When confronted, Emma initially denied everything. Eventually, she admitted to it but tried to justify her actions by saying she was pushed aside my whole life and that I deserved to shine too. The company launched a formal review, and while I was ultimately cleared, the incident caused immense stress, and I lost the promotion I had been working toward. My reputation within the company was damaged, and I had to rebuild trust with my team. After that, I told Emma I couldn't have her around my life or work anymore. I blocked her from my email and phone for a while, and we stopped seeing each other. I moved to a different city to get a fresh start and threw myself into work. A year later, I had regained my footing and finally got a promotion that put me back on track to where I would have been. I felt like I had finally won, not just professionally, but emotionally. Recently, Emma reached out. She's apparently in a bad spot financially and claims she has nowhere to go. She asked if she could stay with me for a few months while she gets back on her feet. I was furious at the thought. Part of me wanted to tell her no immediately, but I tried to think about whether there could be a reasonable compromise. I considered having strict rules, separate rooms, and boundaries. But when I tried to discuss it, she responded with guilt-tripping messages like, "After everything I've done for you growing up, you can't even help me now?" And I thought we were family. I finally told her no. I explained that her actions in the past had consequences and that I couldn't risk letting her live with me, given the way she sabotaged my career. I offered to help her find temporary housing or give advice for job hunting, but made it clear that staying in my house was not an option. She responded by accusing me of being cruel, heartless, and holding grudges forever. Our mutual friends are split. Some say I'm justified because she betrayed my trust in the worst way possible, and that having her in my house could create more damage. Others say I should forgive her and help her since she's family and clearly struggling. Even my parents, who have always been close to both of us, are disappointed in my refusal to let her stay and think I'm being unnecessarily harsh. I feel conflicted because I don't want to burn bridges completely, but at the same time, I feel like her actions were too serious to just overlook. I also worry that letting her live with me could be dangerous for my career and mental health, given the history. I've maintained my boundaries firmly, and she's now trying to publicly shame me on social media, saying I'm unforgiving and selfish. I'm left wondering if I truly am the asshole here. Am I wrong for refusing to let my sister stay in my house, even though she claims to have nowhere else to go? Should I be more forgiving because she's family, or is it reasonable to prioritize my own safety, security, and mental well-being? I honestly don't know if there's a way to help her without putting myself at risk, but the pressure from friends and family is making me doubt my decision. AITA, thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.